Hello, at All for United WSC. Well, we've actually got some goals to talk about this week. We've done 2 match reactions already for the Lionesses and only had the 1 goal in each of them. So we've actually got 6, or 7 really, if you count the China one as well to talk about. Look at this little panel I've assembled here, which is Jess's. I can't remember the last time you were on this. It might have been the Norway-Ireland one with Phil, I think.
Yes, I think that was the one where I got very, very hyped up over Norway and was immediately disappointed. So thanks for that, Phil.
Yes, Ireland are out and Norway are going to be out in the next round. So, we believe the hype, but it wasn't to be. Laura, obviously, thanks for coming on again. You were obviously with us literally less than 24 hours ago. So thanks again for coming on. And we have another. I'm trying to think now. It's got to be our 4th or 5th debutant over this tournament period. So, Sam, obviously, if people don't know who you are, if you just want to give yourself a little introduction and things like that. Obviously, I know we've retweeted a lot of your stuff, so if people follow our Twitter, they'll have seen your stuff by now. But if you want to just give yourself a little introduction there.
Yeah, so I'm Sam. I do analyst stuff as a day job, and then outside of my day job, I like to do all things football. There's obviously a lot of stuff around women's football at the moment, and have a lot of really good traction on it. So I've been doing quite a lot, and looking into a lot of stuff. I do a lot of data type stuff, a lot of statistics. So that's me.
Indeed, like I said, people will have seen our, especially the United girls, have been trying to give some props because they've deserved it, especially the likes of Bo Risa and so on. So, that's been good. So we're getting to all of that. We'll talk obviously about Lauren James. We're going to have to obviously talk about Lauren James, talk about the goals, the other goals scored as well, obviously what this means, Nigeria and all those kind of things as well. We'll do it as we always do, kind of in order. So Jess, I'll come to yourself first. Talk a little bit about the lineup. Obviously, we've been debating for the last week, obviously since the Walsh injury, who's going to come in, is it going to be Zelem and so on. Obviously it was in the end, so obviously as United fans, really happy with that. But Zelem came in and it was a complete change of shape as well. 3 at the back. It was when that team came out, did you think it was like a 4-4-2? Do you think it was 3 at the back? What was your kind of initial thoughts?
Yeah, to be honest, I was absolutely baffled. So I got the notification from FootMob, and it came up saying one thing. Then I screenshot it, sent to my friend, went back on it a little bit later, and although the team was the same, it had repositioned everyone. It had like Jess Carter playing centre mid, and I was looking at it and I was thinking, what the hell was going on? And I ended up staring at my phone for about 10 minutes, trying to work out where everyone was going to go. And I think I actually messaged my friend and was like, right, I think we're playing a 4-4-2. But out of possession would go into more of like a 4-3-3 with LJ kind of tucking in narrow. For some reason, it did not cross my mind at all that we would play kind of 5 at the back, but 3 at the back with 2 wing backs. I think I'm just so used to kind of that 3 in midfield with England that my brain just couldn't comprehend actually doing anything else. So it was when I saw it, when it came on screen, when the game actually came on, I was shocked to say the least. Having said that, I think everyone did absolutely fantastic. The wing backs especially really, really played well. I think everyone individually had a very, very good game. But considering we've never played that system before, they linked up really, really well. So very impressed. Another Sarina Masterclass, I'd say.
I was going to say, just Laura, before you quickly jump in, obviously welcome, Kim. You went on a sporting kind of binge watch yesterday, watching, I think it was cricket, netball, Lionesses show, everything yesterday, rather than watching our World Cup show. Disgraceful behaviour that is, but hopefully you get to rewatch that. But no, welcome to the stream anyway. I'm glad that you made it on this one. But Laura, for yourself, what did you kind of make? Obviously, we spoke about this yesterday in terms of would it be Zelem that comes in and all those kinds of things, but none of us discussed going to a 3 at the back and seeing that. We did that, didn't we? Actually, say that we might see Greenwood in midfield. Well, we didn't think that, but we did joke about potentially Sarina might go for something crazy and Greenwood in midfield. It wasn't quite that, but it was a bit of a change.
Yeah, for sure. I think we had all kinds of possibilities, and I saw when that lineup came out, I saw Anita Sante, I think, saying, I think Carter's going to be in the midfield, and I was like, oh God, what's happening here? But yeah, a very similar process of like, kind of saw the lineup and was like, oh my God, like how do all these players fit on one pitch? And texted my friend, and did kind of, I had it down as staying with a 4-2-3-1-ish with Daly on the wing. Initially, so then when it went to the back 5, I was like, "Oh, that's actually very clever." Funnily enough, Weigman, actually a good coach, and I mean exactly as has been said, like Sarina Weigman masterclass once more. But I think it worked really well. It allowed. I think it was really smart to play it against a 4-4-2 because I think it allows kind of overloads all over the pitch when a lot of the teams out this tournament seem to be playing a 4-4-2. So I think to counter that with the 5 at the back was actually a really good move by Sarina, and it fitted everyone in really nicely. I don't think anyone was like out of position. I don't think I saw anyone on that pitch and was like, "Oh, you kind of been like if you'd have played Greenwood, it would have in the 6. You'd have kind of been like, oh yeah, you're maybe filling in a bit there." But I think overall, like it was really good to see. It was nice to see England do something different, and it was nice to see it pay off in the end. Zelem filled in really well, and yeah, I was pretty happy with it in the end. I was a bit baffled to start off with, but definitely, I mean, you can't really argue with the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, for yourself, how did you kind of see that lineup? I guess, were you surprised, happy with that? We knew there was going to be changes from the last game. There had to be, obviously, with Walsh going out. But is that the kind of changes you were expecting?
I think I just assumed it was going to be the same sort of formation. It was just going to be a 1 in, 1 out. Either Stanway drops in and Coombs goes in like we saw in the last game, or what I hoped it would be, and with Zelem would sit in because she had such a good season last year. I think she fully deserved it. So yeah, when the lineup came out and it was just the numbers and the players in the order, I think I did the same as you, Jess. I sort of assumed it'd be that 4-2-3-1, Daly on the wing. I was like, sort of, that was fine. ITV said that when they put on the coverage as well. And then, yeah, when it sort of lined up and it had the 3 at the back and then see Daly and Bronze either side, and everyone just, as soon as we saw them line up, it was sort of like, yeah, actually, this makes sense. Once you see it out there, the players in those positions, this makes sense. People are good in those positions. People can work well. If we can get the system right, which we ended up doing, obviously, goals galore.
No, 100%. But United fans, we're not going to let this go. About that, Letitia is still not in that squad. You got a point, and we actually did say this. I think it was either yesterday's show or the show last Friday that Letitia is kind of that holding player instead of Walsh. Could have worked, as a potential backup in a one-off game. I would have backed that. I don't think there's too many things there, but obviously she's not, and we'll let it go eventually. When England get knocked out, you're just going to see a flurry of United fans. I told you that's why Letitia should have been there, because we're not going to let that one go too easy. Speaking of United, we may as well talk about obviously Katie Zelem. We'll start off with her. Jess, how good do you think she was today? And obviously, how good was it seeing her? As a United fan, obviously stepping out for England first World Cup minutes and all those kinds of things, first start and everything else. I know that the family obviously are immensely proud of that, and it's a great achievement for her as well. But what do you think of her performance today?
Oh, I thought, well, firstly, I just seeing her in the lineup, I think it's what most people probably wanted. I was a little bit concerned as obviously we saw Coombs be the direct replacement for Walsh during the last game. So I was a little bit concerned that maybe she wouldn't get that starting spot that, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, to be fair, she kind of deserved. But I thought she really, she just showed why she's kind of playing for United, basically, why she's the captain for United. I thought she just stepped into that role pretty much flawlessly, considering she's not had a lot of minutes for England in general throughout her playing career. I think to, start kind of a big game in a World Cup and just to kind of fit in so well just goes to show, the player she is. I think she had something like a 90% pass accuracy. She really, really, really did play very well, and she looked very comfortable in that position. I thought the way she linked up play was pretty similar to kind of what we expect from Walsh. I don't think, we didn't seem like we missed Walsh in that game. That might be because China was so poor, or, I just thought that Zell stepped in really well to that role. And yeah, as a United fan, it was just even better seeing her there, to be honest.
In a system that she doesn't play at United either. There's obviously that as well. Laura, you said this about nobody really looked at our position. This is a position that Katie, obviously does play for United, but not in that kind of setup. So again, I thought she stepped in really well. Highland saying there about happy to see her finally get started. She obviously got overshadowed by James in the end. She was always going to after the performance James had. You mentioned her pass accuracy, and Sam, I'm going to throw it to yourself because I'm assuming you've got some numbers for us on
overall pass accuracy. So I had a look at it earlier because I actually saw that Jess Carter had the highest in the game. Actually, our back three for the passing were way ahead of everyone else. But if you take those out, Zelem had the most touches in the game. She had the most long passes anyway, completed all 5 that she attempted. made 12 passes into the final third, which was the most. She made the most aggressive passes on the pitch, 8, which was the most, again, other than the back 3. So, yeah, she just lost that game. I think it was quite good for her that China sat so deep. It just gave her that extra bit of space to really sort of be able to do what she can do. She can turn, she can go, rather than just having to play back all the time. But yeah, if you've got that sort of opportunity within the team, I think Zelem was a really good player to put there, because we know that she can do that sort of thing.
No, 100%. 100%. I mean, there was a little bit of. I had a few messages of people saying, I won't name them, but I did have a few messages about her refusal to sing the anthem, so to speak, and each to their own. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation that I don't really want to get into on this channel, but that's fair enough. Yeah, exactly. Some people just choose not to sing it. Is what it is. It doesn't need to be a big talking point. But Laura, for yourself, how did you kind of find Zelem's performance in there? You mentioned obviously earlier no player really looked at a position. Do you think she started in well for that role?
Yeah, absolutely. She looked really, really comfortable. I think one of the key kind of facets of that position is to just kind of, I think it's been said in the chat, just I think John said conducting the orchestra, just kind of keeping the rhythm of passes, kind of allowing play to happen around her. But just I think what was really nice is that she looked so reassuring on the ball, and it was almost like when she got the ball, she just kind of calmed that tempo of the game and played it to what England wanted to play. So there was no kind of panic, it was just a very reassured performance. She'd punch in a few passes back in and out of defence, and that's really what you want in that role, just making sure it's calm. And when the opportunity does arise, as has been said, like the kind of long balls over the top were obviously strong and well played, but I think what's really important is just to have that base of assured passing that allows England to kind of regain their composure in those what can be quite tricky positions on the pitch, and to have someone in there that's just really calm. You usually have Walsh in there, and she looks hard to replace, but I think Zelem did a really good job of just making sure that we retain possessions in those areas where it's really important to.
No, for sure. I mean,
as well as being someone calm in that situation, Walsh has played, I don't know how many caps for England off the top of my head, but I think this is Zelem's 9th appearance, and it was her first start in a match where England knew that if they lost, they would be out, probably. But to go into that match then in that such important position, not just have her normal game that she has at Man United, but also to have that sort of step up onto the international stage with that extra pressure on her, I think just shows the sort of mentality and the sort of player she is.
No, 100%. It's something I don't think she gets the credit for. I think I tweeted earlier that, the stick she gets off her own fans at times, right? Even last season, how good she was, the stick that she got. Even today, I saw some people today, well, why is she starting all this kind of thing? And it's like, I don't think people appreciate her kind of mental toughness in these games to constantly go out there. As you've both just kind of said, the composure she has linking up the back line with the midfield. I thought her and Stanway linked up pretty well, playing the ball into James when it needed to be and so on. I thought everything just kind of clicked, and obviously that centres around the midfield, because if you're missing a player like Walsh, now obviously I'm not sat here saying Zelem is as good as Walsh, because as much as I love Zelem, she's not. But you need players like that can fill in these games, and she did. And obviously we don't know how long Walsh is out for, so maybe in the next game we will see this again. I'm going to come back to that actually in terms of what this means moving forward. We'll move on to the first goal then. Dear, she was actually going to be on the thumbnail, Alessia Russo, until James had a masterclass and I changed it. So kind of thankful for Lauren James for saving me, because I was dreading putting Alessia Russo on the front of the thumbnail. But Jess, what do you make of obviously her goal? I know Vic was mentioning the goalkeeping earlier, something we spoke about before we kind of went live about the potentially could have saved the first one. What do you make of Alessia Russo? Because there's been a lot of kind of, I guess, criticism talking about her, that she hasn't scored yet, obviously in the tournament, had a few chances missed, obviously, and pre-tournament as well. Obviously got her goal now. Do you think that's maybe going to kickstart a tournament almost? And what did you make of her performance kind of overall?
Yeah, well, firstly, I'll just say a Lauren James Russo link up is, I don't know how I feel about it. But, moving on from that and our heartbreak over the whole situation, I think the difference is with this game, she had support around her. I think in the previous game, she's looked very, very isolated. I don't know whether that's just been that she's not been able to get herself into the position, whether she's been sort of marked out the game, whether there's the kind of setup behind her, just the balls haven't been sort of getting to her. And sometimes that's potentially not always Russo's fault. Like sometimes the system just isn't quite working. And I think with the way things were tweaked today, Hempo kind of came in quite a lot. Daleen Bronze obviously bombing forward a lot. She had a lot more support. And I think you could really see that today. I mean, the first goal that she scored, she kind of created that herself. She was down the left wing, managed to keep the ball in play, really, really good pass forward, and then it kind of falls back to her. I will say that I think the keeper probably should have done better. Whilst it was placed really, really well, there wasn't really much pace behind it. A better keeper or a keeper having a better day might have done better there. But at the end of the day, what more can you ask for? You've got to be in the right place. You've got to take those shots. And, we got maybe a little bit lucky with that one that came off. But to be honest, I think she deserved it because she'd done so well in the kind of lead up to that goal.
It was interesting. I'm pretty sure it was the FIFA Women's World Cup TikTok tweeted that goal. Like, of all the goals to choose throughout the game, they chose that one with the caption, "What a strike." I'm like, you could have chose any of the goals, and that's the one you chose.
It was absolutely incredible. So that one kind of falls by the wayside a little bit. But I think that it was the build-up play, maybe more in that I was more impressed with Russo about.
No, for sure. I mean, Laura, for yourself, and also I'll kind of throw in that question to you as well. Do you think she benefited in obviously having, because for the most part, Hemp was down the middle as well. Obviously had James in there. Daly was, in and around what we've spoken about. Do you think that maybe benefits her more in this game, having those kind of players around her?
Yeah, I think previously she's always looked like she's tried to fill that Ellen White role, and I don't think she does that well. She's not an Ellen White. Whereas I think actually in this game she was kind of allowed to play more how she wanted. I think exactly what Jess was saying, kind of the system just fitted her a lot better and she was much more involved in that game at the front. I also really enjoyed the way there was a lot of fluidity across that front line. You saw, like as you said, Hemp coming into down the middle. Russo was out wide a lot in that game looking to pick up the ball, and I think previously it kind of been Russo was just dropping deep, but it was kind of always on that vertical, whereas today she was kind of able to run across channels a lot more, pick the ball up and turn with it, which I think was a lot better. And I think she did really well in that role. I think she did really well for the goal to kind of turn and get the shot off. And yeah, I agree, needed more power for it to be like a top class strike, etc., and to make sure that no goalkeeper was going to save that. But it was really well placed. I think the keeper was slightly offsided for that goal, so I think she kind of did what was needed there. But yeah, I think she put in a much better performance, and I think also after all the kind of debate, whatever you make of that, I think it's obviously going to have an impact on a player, even if like whoever is accountable for that. So I think this could be the kind of, okay, I've got my goal, the pressure's off me a little bit, and I can kind of settle into this new system a bit more support around me, and I can kind of play as I like to play, or play in a way that's not just being compared to Ellen White. I think it could help her massively in this tournament, and clearly it's also nice for her that Weigman's shown the kind of faith in maintaining her in the starting 11, which easily could have kind of dropped her by this point. So I think all those things will help her confidence, and hopefully this will be the kind of turning point of her tournament.
No, it's hard to disagree with that. Obviously, there's a lot of comments coming in. Obviously, Sporty saying, Bruce now had a competition. She had Esme Bruce had two fantastic goals in her game. So I don't know which one's going to win out today. But no, you can't argue with the mighty fifth. And then you've added the A. But yes, no, I'm not going to comment because I'll get myself in trouble. And yeah, they have been really bizarre. I don't get it. Obviously, depending on where you're watching around the world, you get different highlights from your own TV broad. I think the ITV and BBC ones in the UK have been pretty good. The FIFA ones, not so much. Very bizarre. But Sam, for yourself, obviously, you're pretty neutral to this, I imagine. But in fact, I don't know. Do you? I've never actually asked. Do you support United or Arsenal, just out of interest?
Yeah, this is probably a bad time to tell you that. I think I've got 6 Arsenal shirts.
Oh. Well, it's been great having you on.
It's fine. Don't worry.
But no, what did you make on? Obviously, we have a laugh and a joke about obviously on here, but obviously after the transfer window. But what have you made of her kind of performance over the last few games and going into this one? Do you think she benefited from having, I guess, more players around her and playing a little bit wider than maybe we've seen in recent games?
Yeah, I think the formation today and the fact that Bronze and Daly were so far up the pitch meant that the wingers could come in closer to her. I think helped out so much. But not just that, the fact that she was a lot more fluid. I think, like you said, Laurie, she was really playing that Ellen White role before, and it's not her game as such. She's better off playing a Leslie Russo game, funnily enough. And she goes out wide and she does really well. And she doesn't stay out wide, she moves around. And I think if you looked at her heat map today, I haven't looked at it, but if you looked at it today compared to the last two games, I reckon the last two have been really red in the middle, whereas this one will be a lot more spread. I think suits her really well. I know I did a little bit of obviously data digging on this. I know that in the games before today, she was the player with the most shots without scoring. She's now had 6 shots on target, and that was obviously the first one today. Was obviously the best one. Finally got a goal, but only Hal from Norway has more. But yeah, out of the group, she's only had 1 goal from 10 shots, which is the worst conversion rate in the group at 10%. For players that have scored. So I think in the first couple of games, she's just trying a bit too hard. Today, she didn't try and take too many shots. She tried to be a bit more a team player rather than being that focal point. She tried to be more of a creator as well. I think that really suited her. And I think sort of sharing that burden between her, between Hemp, between James, whoever else comes in, I think it's really useful for England going forward. I should really hope we continue playing this formation. I wouldn't be opposed to starting those same front three as well.
No, you make it. I'm going to come back to that, and once we've gone through the goals, I want to ask you all kind of about that in terms of what we do moving forward from an England point of view. I mean, what's going on here? It's like an Arsenal takeover. This, come on, need some of the United fans in the chat to pipe up because didn't expect this. It's all good. We can save our bitterness until we play you on the second game of the season, which I can't wait for that. That's going to be some game as well. So we're all friends here. It's fine. And I know what you're saying. You know, the bitterness about Russo. It will go at some point when United finally sign a striker, which is not going to happen. I don't think till after the World Cup. We'll see. Talking of the second goal, then interestingly, not that one. Sorry. Vic saying there, Russo, Hemp, and Kelly's goal are all keeper issues. I'd agree with the first two. I don't know about the second one too much, but Jess, I'll throw it to yourself. Obviously, the Hemp goal. For me, again, this is all in the build-up rather than the finish is good, but the touch from Hemp, the run from Bright, obviously from deep, winning the ball back and running forward as she did. Would you say, again, this is a keeper issue, or do you just think, again, looking at the build-up, the touch from Hemp was sublime to set herself up and everything in and around that goal?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I'd say it's more of a defensive issue. Well, actually, it started really with Millie Bright winning the ball back. So I think that bit of play, actually, I think she nicks the ball back and then she bombs forward. So although obviously she doesn't get it again, but I thought that was really interesting because she's not normally, it's normally Williamson we see kind of stepping out of defence like that. So I did appreciate that little bit of movement. I wouldn't. At the end of the day, it's a one-on-one. You could argue that the keeper should have come out sooner, should have come out later, should have stood her ground a bit more. I think whatever the keeper does in that situation, the striker's in the favoured position. And a good striker, such as Hemp, should be scoring. So the reality is, I'd say it's a team problem, not really a keeper. I don't think the keeper could have, a good striker's always going to score that one way or another, hopefully. But yeah, again, the ball forward from LJ was just pretty ridiculous. I think she was, we'll get onto her more, but she was just insane.
Yeah, sorry, I got slightly distracted by that. That's the first. We've done 4 Lioness shows now, 4 or 5. That's the first comment that says those 3 words. No one said it on a show. Of all the guests we've had over the last kind of 2 weeks and everyone in the comments over the last few weeks, nobody's said those 3 words yet. So well done. You are the first on that one. So first to believe. that's for sure. To be fair, looking at the other sides, I wouldn't bet against it. There's been some shocking performances elsewhere, as we've seen one of them today. Sam, for yourself, what do you make on kind of Hemp's goal? We spoke obviously about the build-up in it as well, obviously Hemp's touch as well. And what do you kind of make of her, I guess, in this game, playing obviously that more central kind of role, switching with Russo and well on that side?
I think I think it was great that she came in for it. Normally, I'd be wanting to start Kelly over Hemp. I think Kelly, the reason she's so good is because she's so good with her crosses. She does so many and they're so accurate. Whereas Hemp is a lot more sort of intense as a player. She's a lot more direct, and that's exactly what she did today. It's a great step forward by Bright. Normally something you wouldn't expect from Millie Bright. It's not really the reason she's in the team, but it's still great when she does it, and she did it really well. Great ball into Lauren James, who perfectly weighted the ball in. Perfect touch from Hemp, which I was really impressed by. It goes across the defender as well, so the defender can't get to it without fouling her. It'd then be last player, so it'd be red card, etc. Didn't give any other option but to let her through, and it was a really cool, smart finish as well. But yeah, I thought she really excelled in that sort of role today, doing a similar sort of thing to Russo, where she didn't have to stay in one position; she could play anywhere across that sort of front three. But she's a smart enough player that Sarina can just leave her to her own devices to say, between the three of you, do the right thing, and I think they do, and I think they do it really well. Hemp actually today had the most XG of anyone on the pitch, only at 0.8, not even a full goal, but she took that really well, and she had 3 shots, which was more than anyone else had as well. Obviously the first one that was the goal was the best one, but I thought she was quite a good threat all day.
No, it's hard to argue with that one. While we're on that, the player of the match poll is in the chat, so make sure you get voting on that one. I have a feeling we know who. Saying that, she's not leading at the moment. There's a few votes that are coming already, and she's not ahead. I'm amazed, but I think this is United fans. Highlight. That's what I just thought. But at the moment, she's not leading. She's now behind. So I think this is United fans hijacking the poll because Zelem's on it. But okay, she's ahead now. Okay, yeah. The Chelsea fans have heard my call, and James is now leading quite comfortably. Anyway, but yeah. So make sure you vote on that one. Laura, for yourself, obviously on this Hemp goal, then have you got anything to add on kind of the build up, the bright movement, and the finish from Hemp, and also just her overall performance in the game?
Yeah, I thought Hemp did really well today. Obviously, not having started the last game, she maybe perhaps has something to prove, and I think she definitely proved whatever it was she was trying to prove. I think she's made a shout. I was shocked to see her not start the last match, to be honest. I thought she was a bit of a dead cert, and I think I was the one person to say Lauren Hemp instead of Mary Earps as like most valuable player on this channel. So I was glad to see she put in a good performance today. But I think she did really well, and I think you don't often see her in that central role, but she executed it really well. I'll just be echoing what everyone else has said, but I definitely think the goalkeeper could have done a lot better throughout the game today, but I'd say Hemp's was definitely one she wasn't at fault for. She was kind of left a bit high and dry by her defence, and it's just a tricky one for a goalkeeper. There's only so much you can do in that situation. I think arguably you say, well, you need to come out and smother her earlier, but if it's Lauren Hemp, she's just touching that ball around you and running onto it, isn't she? Like, she's got the pace, she's got the skill to be able to do that. So, I don't know, you can't stay on your line because you're just making the goal bigger. So I think she did about as much as she could. And I think it was just really well taken by Hemp, and the whole build-up was great. I think even before the Bright touch, I think it was actually won back by Greenwood, and I think that's testament to our defence did really well in coming to meet those balls a lot today. There was quite a few balls over the top and kind of in and around that danger area where, had it gone through, we'd have been in trouble. And I think our whole defence played their part in tidying them up often. And I think it was Greenwood in that case that did that. And it was touched to away, and then Bright was able to run onto that and again did really well, just echoing what everyone else has said. But really good goal, really good build-up play. Can't really argue with that.
No, definitely. I think everyone in the comments pretty much backing up what all three of you said. Luke saying there about Hemp makes England play better going forward. JJ saying there about preferring Hemp to Kelly as an initial impact, and obviously Kelly helps to continue the momentum. Sam, I'm going to come to you with this kind of. It's a joke. I don't know even if you have stats like this. Does anyone have a stat for how many balls Millie Bright has kicked out the ground?
I see that come off of the points. I don't think that's what I can get without watching the footage back, unfortunately.
Yes,
I don't remember it happening yet, but I wouldn't rule it out.
No, certainly at Chelsea's small ground that they play at Kingsmeadow, whacked quite a few out there. I was a bit worried when I parked my car there once for the Conti Cup game because she kicked a few over there, and I thought, hang on, my car's the other side of that stand. That she's just kicked a few balls over, so I was a little bit worried.
I think there's a few like going round in orbit right now, actually, that she booted out the stadium.
It certainly wouldn't surprise me. Odin, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, we can't have a dictatorship here, though, can we? We've got to have a democracy. Let people have their votes. It's closer than I thought, though. Again, I think it's just because it's a United channel. I think if this was a neutral channel, it might be more one-sided. But it is close. But don't let me sway your vote. Vote for whoever you want. And if the person's not on the poll that you want to vote for, put it in the chat, and we come around to it at the end. Speaking of Lauren James, then. First of the two, Jess, if you want to talk us through that one, the free kick kind of laid her on the edge. Great hit. To be honest, when I watch goals like that, I'm always looking like, what are you doing? Like, don't do that. Like, because most of the time these don't work. These kinds of short free kick routines. We saw England try a few of these actually throughout the game. But if you want to kickstart this Lauren James conversation by going through that one.
Yeah, well, as I was watching it, I was thinking, why are China not marking it? I don't know whether they thought England were pulling some sort of like bluff and just leaving her out there, as a distraction. But I was just thinking, it's Lauren James. Like, she can finish from anywhere with either foot. And what did she do? She had so much space. I mean, don't get me wrong, the technique to actually score that when the ball is kind of coming across towards you from the side is really, really difficult. So although she had all the time and space in the world, to actually get a good connection is kind of harder than it looks. To place it kind of where she did, bottom corner, through, there's a lot of bodies in the box there. I don't think she could have actually hit that any better. In fact, I think if you look in the dictionary for one from the training ground, there's just a little video of that goal. Like you kind of mentioned before, we tried a few of those little free kicks, and I think the balls were just slightly overhit. Players were having to take an extra touch. So I was a little bit wary of them doing it, but fair play, you really can't knock that even slightly.
We're not helping ourselves as United fans here, are we? Still talking about Russo's transfer and Laetitia. We don't help ourselves sometimes, but maybe. Who knows? Sam, throw it back to yourself, and if you want to kind of continue on this talk, obviously, about that goal in particular, so we tried a couple of those kind of short things. It's hard for Czech to kind of mark it, but I'm with Jess. I would, if that's the other way around, I'm wanting somebody from the defending side a little bit closer to her, because they're all kind of just worried about what was going on in the box, and obviously James with that kind of strike. But also what Luke's saying there, the way James hits the ball, it is. I said it on the show last week. She reminds me a bit of how Kevin De Bruyne plays in the men's game, that kind of off both feet, slightly different to how other players are playing. So, what do you make on that goal, and just kind of starting off the conversation about her performance there?
I think the only reason I can think of as why they didn't mark her is purely because they were scared of our aerial threat generally. Obviously, we've got a few players that are good in the air, whether it's Bright, whether it's Daly. We've got a few. But I've just had a little look, and their two centre-backs are 168 and 167 centimetres. They're not tall. They're going to get dominated in the air. If they're thinking they're going to put more players in the box ready for a cross, then they can try and deal with that better. And then if Lauren James does have a shot, it's got to go through bodies. It's got to come from distance. If she scores a goal, good luck to her. I think that's probably more their tactic, more their thought process, if they've thought it through. But when you give someone like Lauren James, player of that quality, enough time on the ball to have a shot like that, it's only going to go one way, isn't it? But I thought she was absolutely outstanding today. Five goal involvements in one game, 2 goals, 3 assists. It's the first time this tournament that someone's got 3 assists in a game. She didn't quite get a third goal, obviously, because that was one that was ruled out, which I thought was a bit harsh, but there we go. But she's absolutely outstanding today. She had the most dribbles in the game as well, created the most chances, had the most assists and the most goals. She's just a standout player.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think absolutely sensational performance from LJ. Can't fault it. And I agree. I think she was really lucky to not have a hat trick today. That second goal was so annoying. They got rolled out. I'm still not convinced by the decision, to be honest. But I don't think bronze was involved enough. It came off the head of a Chinese player, right? And so I'm not sure how it can be ruled out as offside. but obviously they deemed bronze to have had a big enough involvement in how the play went that it was. But yeah, really unfortunate. I thought the way that second goal that was ruled out was played and so similar in many ways to the first goal just shows how consistent she is as a player. And at 21, I think we discussed it on this channel, like you can't quite believe that she's still only 21, and to be able to produce that quality with that consistency and execute that shot, like it's so difficult. And again, like the third goal, she made it look so easy, but that is so tricky to get on the volley at the back post. The pace that ball would have been coming at, the angles, and it was perfect, like just into the corner of the netting across the goal. Honestly, every single goal she scored, they're up there. If without maybe Esme Brutes, they're up there for like shouts of goal of the tournament. Both of the goals she scored today. I think the cross from Daly for her, a second one that actually stood, was really, really good as well. I think it was Daly. And yeah, both absolutely incredible. And to get exactly, as has been said, like to get 3 assists, 2 goals in a 6-1 match, to have 5 goal involvements, like, wow. 21 years old, first World Cup, and she's already on 3 goals in the group stages. Like, honestly, insane.
Golden Boot challenge, potentially. She's on for it. If England have a good tournament, you know, I certainly wouldn't be ruling it out.
She's only 1 goal behind top scorer. So
exactly, it's not out of the question. Certainly not. Talking obviously about Algernon, the one that was ruled out. Not gonna lie, I've watched this a million times. I still don't get it. There's a lot of conversation in the chat. Kim was saying that I still don't think Lucia didn't have any advantage of her offside position. You know, and
so I think it was because
I don't get it.
Started offside, and they were still, although the Chinese girl headed it, I think because China didn't get control of it again, they still count it as being in the same phase of play. Now, I don't particularly agree with it, because I think what they've said was, although they've agreed that she wasn't obstructing the keeper for like an initial offside when the ball first came in, then she kind of went back and was onside. But because China didn't regain control, they were still in the same phase of play, which meant that she was still offside, even though when she picked it up again, she was back onside. Which I think if China have sort of headed it away, we're in a new phase of play. But I think it's one of them, it's subjective. So it's so unlucky, because can you imagine if we were I mean, it's insane enough that we're talking about someone scoring 2 goals and getting 3 assists, but can you imagine if we were sitting here talking about someone getting a hat-trick and 3 assists? A 21-year-old at that, like, it's honestly just absolutely insane. And all 3 of those goals were pretty much worldies, you know, really good goals.
I think also, like, on the new VAR rules that they're trialing out, that's meant to make it clearer, where the referees obviously like having to explain the decision to the crowd. I felt like, I don't know about anyone else, but I still felt really unclear about that decision. It's almost like, if you're going to bring in something that's an explainer, do the whole thing, like actually explain it to me, because I'd have loved to know like the actual talking through that decision. Maybe it would have helped me understand it more. But I think it would have been nice to kind of do them even more like kind of cricket rugby take on that, to really like talk it through, if you're going to bring something like that through, because currently it just feels like exactly the same as seeing it on the board or whatever.
It seems very, this is a really like different conversation, but it seems very pantomime. I'm not a fan of this. Like being able to hear the ref, because like the one earlier when she did that first to us, she was like, "Can you all hear me?" It was very much like, does it matter? Like, just say what the decision is. It was. I'm not a fan of it, because it just seemed, to me, it just seems very pantomime, and it just takes away the seriousness of it. Because some refs are really going for it when they're like going, "Oh, and my decision is," and there's like a delay before they announce. Like, just, like, we don't need any more drama. Just announce what the decision is. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's not clearer for me. If anything, like Jason, the ref seems unclear as well. Like it doesn't seem to be any. I'd be intrigued actually when we speak to some people that have been in the grounds what it's like, because certainly watching on TV it doesn't come across very well. Not for me anyway.
I think sorry, clap on it. So I like to say was, like you said, like things that happen in other sports. So I'm quite into my hockey, and I know something that happens there is that they actually broadcast the whole conversation. So there's sort of a VAR type thing, and they'll talk through it, two of them, and say about what they think has happened and why they think something has happened. So it may still be subjective that the ref would make the final call on, but at least the whole stadium gets to hear about what's going on, and everyone on the broadcast gets to hear about what's going on. And that makes it a lot more clear. And it's all very professionally done. It's none of this like, yeah, can you hear me? Sort of having almost looked like she was kind of having a little joke and a little laugh at the crowd when she did it. It's all much more professional and sort of, yeah, done really well. I think that would really help. I'd like to see that come through.
It does. It just makes me laugh. Like, like they are like sometimes they're like laughing. Like say my decision is, then there's a big delay. Yeah.
So I do quite like the first couple of games. I think they got it wrong because they'd say penalty and then they'd describe it. And obviously the crowd just drowns them out, and no one knows what's going on at that point. So I think it's good that they've at least fixed that bit.
Yeah, he's a funny one, that's for sure. Evening to yourself, Ashley. Who'd have thought it's called? Well, we didn't when we were on the show last week. That's for sure. We didn't. I can't remember what any of us said actually. I have to go back and rewatch it. And yeah, when she popped to bronze, obviously for the one. On that, we'll come back to James in a second. Obviously, while we're talking about VAR and things like that, we'll talk about the penalty that China got given. I guess the question is there any complaints about it? Do we think that it shouldn't have been? Obviously, we know. For me, Earps jumped a bit early on the penalty, but penalties are a lottery. She could either damned if you do, damned if you don't on that one. But the decision itself, are we all in agreement that it probably was a penalty, or is there anyone going to sit here and say that it probably shouldn't have been? Who wants to stick the neck out first and make a VAR decision on this one?
I think it probably was. I think some of the angles made it look slightly less bad, but I think it did hit her arm, and you can't really argue with that. I don't know, like shouts that either it was her sleeve, which I think's okay, but I do think it was just below her sleeve, or that it wasn't kind of in an unnatural position and Earps was just behind her. But I think regardless of either, it did hit her arm. I think it was below her sleeve, and whether it was intentional or not, it changed the direction of the ball, it saved the ball. I think you've got to give that as a penalty.
I mean, the comments are pretty split already, saying that it was, and then saying that it wasn't. It was interesting because Emma Hayes on commentary straight away, before anyone had noticed, saying, I think there was a handball in there. She was straight on it. I don't know how she saw it because I certainly didn't, from the first one. But Sam, Jess, do you think it was a penalty? It's Earps' push, actually, that actually makes it a handball in the first place, because I don't think it's going to hit Bronze's arm without that.
It's a bit of a weird one. So I actually missed it watching it live because obviously I was in work, and I said to Connor earlier I had to take a work call, which was really, really inconvenient, to be honest. So I was on the phone to a guy in Poland. My friend's texting me like, oh my God, China have got a penalty. I'm trying to switch back to the right tab whilst also arrange some sort of work trip. So I did miss kind of all the drama surrounding VAR, but watching it back on like the highlights and stuff, I think it is one of them again. It's fairly subjective, but we're pretty much used to seeing those given now, so I wasn't surprised. One thing I will say is I'm not really sure about the yellow card. I don't know whether it's just one of those that if there's a handball in the box, it's just kind of an automatic yellow. But like you kind of said there a little bit, it did look like Earps pushed her into it. I don't think Bronze really knew much about it at all. So for me, penalty probably yes, but not a yellow.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think it's one of those that almost a bit, I think it's a little bit like the last goal we saw about as well, that got ruled out. That it's one of those that's officially what the rule is, but I'm not sure that should really be the rule, that you're going to get a yellow card if this sort of thing happens. I'm not sure there's any malicious intent. I don't think her arm was in a particularly unnatural position, but it was in the way. It did definitely hit her arm. So I completely understand why it's given. I think if Lauren James hadn't turned up today and had 5 goal involvements and this made it 1-1, I think it'd be a very different conversation. A lot of people would have very different opinions about it, but in the grand scheme of things, at 6-1, it's the only goal we've conceded all group stage, and it's from a penalty. And it's down the middle. Mary Earps can't really stand down the middle while they take a penalty. She could like a muppet if she didn't save it. So I think she had to dive. Chinese played the right thing, scored the penalty. The only, apart from Lauren James, is the only player in the group stage to score more than 1 goal. So, and they're both penalties. So, yeah, I think Mary Earps did the right thing. doing what she could do. Lucy Bronze was just unlucky and couldn't do any more with it, but it doesn't matter. It's my overarching thing.
I'm just so hypercritical of keepers. People are going to start calling me Gary Neville on air or something. I don't know. For me, Earps just jumps like a second too early. It's almost like she's gambling on her going that way rather than waiting a little bit long. I don't know. That's just me being ridiculously overcritical, but I don't need to be. So,
number one goalkeeper over here, Connor, giving us area.
Me with all my goalkeeping, coaching badges, and all of those kinds of things that I've got. Telling one of the best keepers in the world how to do a job. Yeah, I'll shut up. Obviously, we're talking about the England response, and obviously James's second goal, which to me was the best one of all three of them, mainly because obviously the pass from Carter, I think it was, that played it to the back post. Jess, if you want to start us off on this one, it's one hell to hit that on the again. You were saying it earlier. This is supposedly her weak foot, that she's hits it with on the left side across goal into the top right corner. It's one hell of a finish, and it's a great pass as well from Carter.
Yeah, I mean, kind of point perfect pass, that kind of Chelsea link up. But yeah, the finish is just insane. I think it's very easy again. It's a really hard finish to actually kind of, it's a hard ball to kind of finish, basically. The ball's coming across you. You've got to gauge it right. A lot of people are just going to wave their foot at that and it's going to go flying over the bar. She almost passed it into the goal, really. Really, really hard technique. Just ridiculous, to be honest. I feel like everyone as a collective are just running out of words to use to describe Lauren James. Just actually insane at this point. Like, I'm not convinced that she's human. Everything she does is just a little bit insane, to be honest with you. And I can't believe it, to be honest. Like, she is just insane.
I mean, John's not a huge fan of Jess Carter, so he's having a little bit of a joke there. But I mean, it certainly was. I mean, Laura, for yourself, how do you kind of see that goal? Because it's something that we mentioned this on yesterday's show, actually, in terms of talking about England, those kind of crosses to the back post. We've seen it a lot in the first couple of games where players just haven't necessarily been arriving on the back post enough for those kind of things. But it's, as Kimberly says, it's an outrageous finish to take the pace off it. Like, there's a lot of pace on the pass to be able to keep it down as well, because a lot of those shots balloon over the bar because of the pace on the ball as well. So yeah, I'll just let you kind of have your say on that one.
Yeah, I think the fact she made it look easy is just like, I don't know, those shots are so hard to take, and you frequently see so many top level players just absolutely mess them up, and you're like, oh, how did you miss that? But it goes to show how difficult they are to take, and she just made it look so easy, and it wasn't even like slightly scuffed and into the goal and you'd say it was a good shot anyway because they're hard to take, and it wasn't even like into the side netting. It was buried perfectly in the corner of the netting. Absolutely brilliant take on the volley. The fact that it was on a weaker foot, just wow. I don't know how many times we need to bring up that she's only 21 years old, but it makes it so much more impressive. And yeah, she had an absolute blinder of a game. I don't know how many more, as Jess said, how many more superlatives we can use to describe her, but it was an incredible goal, incredible finish all round. I thought the cross from Carter was really good, and kind of talking about getting on that back post, I think that was something that England did a lot better today. And I think the fluidity up front really helped that, because you're kind of already getting those runs happening, making those movements on the ball and off the ball. I think Daly's goal as well also came from kind of back post finish. So yeah, really good performance overall from the team, and like how you can't keep praising Lauren James enough, really.
No, for sure. And I hear what you say. I agree with your first part of your comment here. Talking about best young players at the tournament, obviously Caicedo, Carolyn and James and so on. That was just maybe the best. Obviously, that's opinion based. I'm seeing this a lot about United letting her go and all this kind of thing. I don't. For me personally, I don't understand this narrative, because it's one of those. I think it was almost inevitable that she was going. She was very, very open about moving to London, Chelsea, in particular. That move was always going to happen eventually. I think United could have offered her everything, and she probably would have gone. So I don't think United maybe like lost her. Like maybe you could look at like Russo or even Honor to a certain degree. I think it's slightly different with James. She was always going back to Chelsea as well. People forget that as well. So yeah, Yeah, exactly. She was always going to leave. And as Hiron said, it's like the Honor Barca thing. It was going to happen eventually. So I don't think United really lost. And yeah, we've got to add that in there. Didn't hurt as much as the Russo one, that's for sure. But Sam, kind of rounding off the James talk there, if you want to run us through that goal in particular and just any final thoughts on her performance.
Yeah, obviously that was a fantastic goal. I think a lot of people would have tried to pass it back in from there. Like, I can't remember, it was in the comments said that Carter was probably aiming for the forward rather than James on the far side. I think a lot of players would just pass it in because they thought, that's what I should do, and that's the sensible thing. It's the easier thing. I think if I was in that position, A, I'd miss it, but B, it wouldn't even cross my mind to try and shoot. But just give you an insight of how clinical she's been. She's had 5 shots on target from 5 shots, which is a feat no one has matched at the whole tournament so far. Van der Donk's closest with 4 from 4. James has scored 3 goals with 0.7 XG. So you maybe expected to score 1 from the shots she's taken in the tournament so far. Never mind 3. And then, 2 goals from outside the box is great. Only Brooks can match that. Other than Caicedo, she's got the best conversion rate in the league in the tournament. 3 goals from 5 shots is pretty good, and the sort of goal she's scoring as well. Yeah, like I say, Caicedo is the only one above that. Her 2 goals came from a combined 0.1 XG, which is just insane. But yeah, James is still just on another level to everyone else. She's got the most goal involvement, 6 now at the whole tournament. And to be honest, I'd expect her to still be up there, maybe even still topping that list at the end of the tournament. And yeah, like you say, Laura, it's so strange to think that she's still 21. I sort of remember seeing her pictures a while ago of her in an Arsenal kit before she went to United, before she went to Chelsea. And it's like, she feels like she's been around for ages. It doesn't feel like she's only 21. You feel like she's a seasoned player in her mid to late 20s, like, 27-year-old, like Katie Zelem is, sort of thing, rather than this little 21-year-old who's still got another 10, 15 years of an international career ahead of her. It's just crazy to think what she could go on to do.
Certainly is. As we said, before, with these kind of players, their peak is not until their mid to late 20s. So still, way off that, and it's frightening for me. United, for fans of the WSL watching it at Chelsea. I know Emma Hayes was a little bit. She was trying to be impartial to this at the start, but I think the longer the game went on, that impartiality kind of went. I think she said, didn't she say something like, whoever's got this player needs to tie down to a long-term contract or something along those lines. And she's going to be tearing up for Chelsea, that's for sure. Along with the amount of talented players that they've got there. We'll touch briefly on the Kelly goal again. I think we're really going to be talking about James's patty. As Hiron's saying here, talking about the pass for the Kelly goal, because this one is on the keeper, because she does come out, kind of flaps at it. Don't really know what she does. It was a bit weird. It's the easiest goal that Kelly's going to score. But anyone got anything to add on that one? And do you agree with what Highland's saying there? The pass from James to Kelly, almost like a carbon copy of that Walsh to Toon pass at Wembley last year.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very similar, and just the movement from Kelly moving forward. The only thing I will say is a better keeper should have actually handled that. So maybe not quite the same level of finesse as Walsh, but generally speaking, I think the way she kind of is breaking lines moving forward as well, it's not just her finishing that's insane. It is her assists as well. She not only can she kind of finish as like a 9 almost, but she can play in that kind of like creative centre mid role, which again, is just kind of scary. You can put her in kind of any of those forward positions and she's going to turn up and she's going to do kind of bits for you, basically. The ball forward really was incredible, and the keeper should have done better, but like you say, Chloe Kelly's not going to score an easier goal, is she?
What's it called? I just want to be good. Yeah, exactly. We've seen goals throughout the years. You've got it. If Kelly's not running it down, she's not going to get on the end of it. The keeper just makes a mistake and gets on it. So. Exactly. Never give up on a ball. I've just watched it back while Jess was talking now. It's like she's realised what happened with the Hemp goal and thought, right, I've got to come out this time. Came out too fast, realised actually I've overran this, so I can't catch it because I'm now outside the box, and then panicked, and it's next thing it's bounced behind her. But yeah, Laura, Sam, have you got anything to add on that one in particular, or should we move on to the 6th and last England goal?
I was just going to say, I think it's not necessarily a carbon copy of the Walsh routine. I think it was more a carbon copy of the passes that James has been playing through to Sam Kerr all season. I think the amount of time she'll have played that ball to set Kerr free has happened all season. And if you watch Chelsea, I'm sure you'd recognise that pass from a lot of those balls. I think it was an excellent ball. I'm not going to quite give James the credit of a Walsh finesse yet. I can't quite do that to myself yet. But yeah, a great ball. Definitely a howler from the keeper. I agree. I think she realised she was out of a box and panicked when she realised she couldn't catch it, and then couldn't quite recover in time, and then Kelly was away with it. But yeah, really good ball. Not much to add.
I think I'm sort of the other way, actually. I don't think it was that good a ball, because I think if the keeper didn't have such a nightmare with it, I think the keeper would have taken care of it and we wouldn't be talking about third assist it. So I think, don't get me wrong, those sort of balls are the sort of thing that even the best players don't get right 100% of the time. But you play those sort of passes and it was the right thing to do. They're lucky in this scenario that the keeper went walkabouts and missed it completely. But it was still really good composure from Kelly to score the goal. It was quite easy. It was quite a tight angle. It was quite easy to get too nervous there, especially in a big game and miss it. But yeah, I thought she kept her head really well. Put it away quite neatly.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to finish them off. You know, it's all right, Kelly getting in those possessions. Obviously, like I said, she's not going to get an easy one, but she still has to finish it as well. Has anyone got anything to add on the last one? Because again, I want to get to kind of looking at Nigeria, obviously, in the next round and what we do there in this one as well. So I'll keep this a little bit brief, because the last goal, again, it was a bit scruffy. It was kind of pinging around the box. I can't remember. Someone had a shot blocked, and then obviously it fell to Daly on the far side. Good finish from her again. I don't think this one's on the keeper. It's more, again, you're looking at the Chinese backline going, that shouldn't be pinging around the box in the way that it was. You know, you've got to clear that. But Daly on the score sheet, if anyone wants to wax lyrical about Rachel Daly and why she should be further forward, maybe not as a left back in this tournament.
I think when the lineup went out and most people thought that this would be Daly on the left wing, is because she's so good going forward. It's sort of like, Sarina sort of clocked this now. She's going to be putting she's great at left back, but actually, we can get her further forward and scoring goals. But yeah, she's finally showing that she can do it. She only had, I think that was her only shot in the game. Might have had one or two others, but she didn't have a lot going for it. It still wasn't the easiest finish. It was relatively tight angle first time, bit of control, but yeah, I thought she's there. She knows what she's doing. We trust her to do that sort of thing. I hope to see her playing up front a bit more as we go through. But yeah, I'm happy with it, as long as she's on the pitch, because there's still a chance of her doing that.
No, for sure. There's a couple of comments about, will we ever see her in a United shirt and then following her days? Doesn't actually been announced to Red yet. I wouldn't get your hopes up. No, I just wouldn't. I'd like to see it. I'm not against it at all. We need two strikers, let alone one. So I certainly wouldn't be against that. But I think we've missed the boat on her coming to United. That's for sure. Right, let's move on to obviously what I said this a bit earlier on in terms of Jess. I'll throw it over to yourself first. What does Sarina do now? And obviously, we don't know the extent of the Walsh injury. We've seen 3 different lineups in the 3 games that we've played in the group stages. If you're Sarina now looking obviously at the next game, what would you be looking to do in terms of formation-wise? Would you be trying to keep it the same? And who do you think is almost like nailed on starting? Somebody we've not mentioned obviously on here. We spoke about her a lot in the last one. Obviously, Ella Toon has now, I think, probably lost her starting spot with the performances of James, with Hemp and so on. Would you kind of agree with that? And what do you think Sarina should be looking to do, in the next round?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Ella Toon. She's probably one of my favourite players. But unfortunately, tournament football moves very, very quickly. You don't really have time to kind of play yourself back into the team almost. A couple of bad games and that's sort of it, especially when you've got other players that are so much in form. In terms of players cementing a position, going to obviously just state the obvious, LJ, you literally cannot drop her. If I was Sarina, I'd probably be trying to keep this kind of lineup and this formation. The way she's kind of got everyone in the team, but it just works. Having Daly on and Russo is something, and kind of both attacking is something that we kind of wanted to see, but didn't really know how that would sort of work out. I think, well, I don't see how you can really change this formation now. You know, it's done so well. Potentially, even if Walsh, well, we don't know the extent of Walsh's injury. I'm looking at it from what I saw. You know, I think she's going to be out for a little while. But even if she's not, at what point do you want to risk bringing her back into the team? You know, we have kind of just proven that I know China did not perform well, but we have sort of just proven that we can progress without her. So I'd be kind of wanting to keep the same team, keep that core together. You know, the centre mids worked really well together. This was a completely new lineup for everyone, and it did not look like that at all. You know, Zell, we've already covered her. She stepped in really, really well. It's like we've been playing this formation kind of for many games. Not that was our first one.
Yeah, I mean, Laura, what would you be looking to do now? Would you kind of keep this? Because obviously, like I said before, we had this conversation on every Lionesses show that we've done so far in terms of what we would do. What would you be looking to do now with this side? Would you, because obviously it worked today, but with a tough Nigeria side coming up next, would you be looking to keep that kind of back 3/5, or would you go back to the back 4? What would you be looking to do now?
I think it'd be really interesting. I think I would keep it because I think it clearly worked really, really well today. And I think it's the most confident we've looked as an England side. So from like a mentality confidence perspective, I think it would make sense to keep it. I think everyone looks secure in their positions, as I said earlier. And I think Sarina made a comment after the match saying everyone was really excited to play it, which I thought was an interesting comment, but I think that bodes well if the kind of team are on board and enjoying playing that. I think what will be interesting is I think it works particularly well against a 4-4-2. And I can't say I'm an expert on Nigeria, but I have quickly scanned the BBC website to see what formation they play. And the BBC, who aren't always accurate with their formations, it has to be said, but they have them down as a 4-2-3-1, which is potentially slightly different because I think what worked really well is England outnumber China in every aspect of the field when they play this formation. But if you're playing a midfield 5 versus a midfield 5, arguably you don't have the same overload, so it might not work exactly the same. I also think there were still some defensive vulnerabilities there today that I'd like to see ironed out, and I think obviously that's what's going to be probably worked on. But I do think there were times where China looked like they had chances. They look like they could score, and I think they're the kind of chances that Nigeria, with someone like Oshwala up front, is going to put away. They're a much more kind of fierce attacking side, putting much more pressure on than someone like China would, who kind of basically just sat in their own half for all of the match. So I think it will be really interesting to see how we fare against Nigeria, but I think on the balance of kind of confidence and how good we look today, I would continue with this formation, and hopefully that defence continues to gel together.
Yeah,
and Sam, for yourself, what would you be looking to do? You said earlier that you quite like the formation. Would you be looking to keep that now?
Yeah, I think if we had to go back to 4 at the back like we had before, I think there probably are a couple of changes to make, but I'd just keep it as it is, to be honest. The only thing that I might end up changing would be Kelly in Hemp. That is purely because 2 things for Nigeria. One is that they're going to sit back quite deep, as they have done so far. They've averaged just under 38% possession in each game. So we're averaging about 58, I think, or something like that. So we're probably going to have a lot of the ball. They're going to sit deep. We could maybe put some crosses in. Again, they're a team that we're going to have a bit more aerial threat with. Kelly's really good with her crossing. That's the only change I think I'd make. Otherwise, the other thing, as well, is that Heather's already on a yellow. If she gets one more, she's suspended. So probably want to keep her for the Colombia game. I think she's probably a better option than Kelly generally. It'd just be for Nigeria. I think Kelly might be a better option. Get him back in for the Colombia game, which I think is going to be more difficult, assuming Colombia get through to that stage. That'd be the only change I make. Otherwise, just keep it exactly the same. I think Nigeria are going to be basically an upgraded version of China. They're going to press with 1 instead of 2. Which would mean that our defenders will have a lot more time with the ball rather than the midfielders, but our back 3 today were all really good. Their passing accuracy was really high. Aggressive passes as well were really good. They're making a lot of passes into the box, into the final third, which is exactly what we need. And I think it's the sort of performance where Nigeria will be looking, going, right, if England play like they do, or like they did today, we're a bit screwed. We need to think about what we're going to do. How are we going to counteract that? I don't think England are going to be too scared about what Nigeria are going to do.
I was going to say, I think Kimberly asked us earlier, so I was going to come back to it. You mentioned the yellow cards there. When do these reset? Does anyone know? Is it after the quarterfinal? They reset again. So then there's then not a suspension for the next one. There's definitely a reset. I just don't know when it is. I don't know whether it's after the round of 16 or whether it's after the quarterfinal when these reset.
In the men's one, it was after the quarters. I assume it's the same, but I'm not sure.
Because that's a good point to mention. With you mentioned Hempner, bronze, and Stanway as well. It's a risk. I'm not saying that these players are going to have to be a little bit careful, especially in the midfield. We've got to be a little bit careful that we don't get any more, especially with as we said earlier, with Walsh being out. And there we go, after the quarterfinal. So it is just the next game they need to be worried about. So you make a good point. Maybe it is time just to take Hemp out, maybe just to. But then would you take the other two out?
My concern would be Stanway out of everyone.
And you're not going to drop her, are you?
No, I think Hemp can probably get through a game without getting a yellow card. Stanway, although she did prove in the Euros that she can be very disciplined and playing like what did she play, like 70 minutes on a yellow card? But the thing is, Nigeria are a very physical team, and we kind of need. We're going to need someone like Stanway who's not kind of afraid to get stuck in. But that comes a huge risk because like that comment says, I don't know if she can get through 90 minutes against Nigeria without getting a yellow. I honestly don't.
Certainly make an interesting what Haley's saying there about bronze shouldn't have been a yellow. Can they appeal? I don't know, to be honest.
I don't think you can appeal yellows, can you? I think you can only appeal reds. That could be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's the disappointing thing about it just being a yellow. You can't actually go back and change that.
Yeah, so they're going to be walking a fine line, that's for sure, in that one. Because as you said, obviously, if it is Colombia in the quarterfinal, should they get through their game as well, it's going to be a tough old one in the quarterfinals as well. Should England get past the Nigeria test? Before I ask you for your score predictions, and I'll come to each of you for your kind of player of the match, I'll end the poll now. Let's see what the percentages were. I have a feeling we know who won it, though. So Lauren James did win it in the end, 72%, quite a big margin as we thought it would be. Zelem on 23. Millie Bright got the 4, and I did put just Daly on there as well. She didn't get a single vote. Shame. But is everyone in agreement with that? Lauren James for player in the match. Obviously, she got it officially as well. I'm assuming there's going to be no arguments or too much to add on this one. I think we've pretty much spoken about Jade for the last hour or so. Yeah, everyone's nodding. I think we're good. I think we're all in for James. Fine. Right, before we wrap it up, then I'll come to your score predictions for the Nigeria game then. And so let's see how confident the panelists are and the people in the comments, so I get yours in as well. Jess, for yourself first. Are England going through? Are they going out? What do you reckon?
Yeah, after one good game, I'm fully on the bandwagon of it's coming home now. So I'm going to go for a solid 3-0 win for England.
Laura?
Yeah, I was going. I'm between 2-1. I think we'll win, definitely. I think Nigeria might get a goal on the break, or I don't know. I just see them breaking us down once in the match. So yeah, I'm going to go agree with Chris in the comments and go 3-1. I still think we'll put in a good performance. I think we can break them down, but I think 3-1.
We've got our first England defeat. Sam, are you good?
Not this early.
I'm between 2-0 and 2-1. I think England will get a couple of goals, enough to get us through. I think we'll be winning by half time, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as comfortable as it was today. I think with a couple of players, like we say, having potential yellow cards and getting suspensions and things like that, and just being that little bit further in a tournament, it's going to be a bit less bombing forward to go and try and score more goals. But I still think we'll get a couple. I don't think Nigeria will score more than one. China pretty much only scored today because they got a lucky penalty, and Nigeria are going to pose a similar threat. So yeah, 2-0 I'll go.
No, I think that's solid. I think 2-1, 2-0. I think it's about where I'm thinking 5-2. That's on that. I mean, that's ridiculously confident. That's each to their own. But I can't see that happening at all. What are you saying here? Can't wait for us to come back so confident from the panel. I mean, to be fair, Nigeria have played really well You know, as people would have seen from the clip I put out when we spoke about Nigeria pre-tournament, people were overlooking them big time. People aren't now because obviously of how they've performed in the tournament so far. So it's certainly going to be a tough test for England. Maybe it's the recency kind of bias of seeing England win 6-1 today that's swaying us a little bit. And when we see Nigeria in that game, maybe. But it's going to be a good game. As I said, the quality in the tournament is certainly getting better as the days go on. So that's good. And Hayes going for I think he'll be tied to 2-1 as well. I think England to win on penalties. Jeez, I don't know about penalties. I'm worried if we go against Japan a bit later on. Well, I think we said this yesterday on our kind of World Cup show that we did, that they probably look the most complete team right now. So they're certainly going to be tough for any opposition to come up against. Obviously, they've got to get past Norway. They will. They've got Norway in the next round. So yeah, beware of
Good news
they
is
are.
they're on the other side of the draw. So at least if we play them, we'll be in the final.
Exactly. So we can avoid them till then. I mean, yeah, fair point. Which, to be fair, I didn't even think of it like that. It's the only team to beat Sarina Weigman as well for England as well. So that's for sure. She has. It's not public though, or I don't think it is anyway. But yeah, she has. Zelem with the winner. We'll take that. We'll wrap it up there. Then before I do, Sam, considering it's your first time on the show, if people want to follow you, find your stats work and all those kinds of things, where can people do all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Statorino, either on Instagram or Twitter. Yeah, check me out. I post things pretty much every day, do graphics as well as sort of general tweets. And then, yeah, if anyone's got any requests as well, just reply to me or DM me. Yeah, all very open to anything coming in. Any love is appreciated.
No, definitely go check that out. You know where to find Laura by now. She shouted at her Twitter there. It's in the handle. And obviously, if you want to follow me and Jess, you can do. But you'll find us on here most weeks, obviously on at allforunitedvids on Twitter and Instagram and all those kinds of things. Well, so make sure you're doing that, following those pages, obviously liking the video and subscribing, all of that. I don't think we'll be back again until next Monday now. Depending if things change from a United point of view, we might have a United show in and amongst then. But yeah, maybe 5 or 6 days off. So we'll see how things develop. But yeah, make sure you follow on the Twitter, doing all of that stuff. We shall see you guys in the next one.